the story of how I lost my virginity at my college campus. And it was one of my professors that took my virginity. And this professor had a wife. Let's get right into it. This happened my freshman year in college, okay? A bitch just got there. If I'm being 100% honest, I never wanted to do the nasty because I was trying to save it for somebody special. After I graduated, baby, it was time for me to act up. And I most definitely acted up. Shit. So freshman year of college comes around. The first day of school and I walk into English class. I see this fine, sexy, tall glass of water. See this man sitting at this desk in the front of the classroom. This man was Liam Hemsworth on crack. This is Liam Hemsworth. Bitch, do the math. Class starts and he introduces himself as the professor. Like, really? I wanted this man to rail me. Anyways, as time went on, this professor and I began to become really close. Maybe a little too close. He would ask me to stay after class and we would literally just talk. It became a regular thing. We got so close that we exchanged phone numbers. So close to the point where one night he called me and invited me to his house. This is gonna be part 2 of how I lost my virginity to my college professor who was married. So like I said, he calls me one night and invites me to his house. He said we were getting along really well and that he never did this to any of his other students, but since me and him created such a special bond that I was an exception. So I was like, you're fine ass, sir, I will speed. Let me grab my keys. He gives me the address, I show up and he lets me in. We sit down and we just start talking about anything. He shows me around his house eventually. As he's showing me around his house, we get to some pictures on the wall. That's when I found out that he had a wife. Immediately no. Nothing else happened and I made an excuse to go home. He texts me and says that it sucks that I had to go home. He wishes we could have spent more time together. I told him that was most likely the last time we were going to spend together since he had a wife. Because I did give a fuck. At the moment. But things changed. Finding out he was married made me so uncomfortable that I stopped answering his calls and I stopped replying to his texts. I also skipped that class for a little bit because I just felt so awkward. One day the professor sends out an email saying that there was a mandatory meeting after school. I go to that meeting, but when I show up, me and my professor are the only people there. Like for part 3. This is gonna be part 4 of the time I lost my virginity by my college professor who was married. Like I said, me and my professor started taking pictures and taking videos whenever we would hook up. That would lead to our downfall. Mind you, he was the one who asked to start taking those pictures and recording those videos because he wanted it for when I wasn't around. We were doing all this and we were still walking by each other in class like nothing happened. Well, one day I'm sitting in his class as usual. Just a normal regular day. I never would have thought anything like this would have happened. But I guess it's my karma. We're sitting in class and we're learning about whatever the hell. We were going over some notes that a student had asked to go over because they didn't understand, but the professor was having a hard time trying to pull up these notes. His computer screen was connected to the big screen that all the students could see. I don't know what it's called, a smart board? Some electronic screen. It's a projector. I googled it. His computer screen is on the projector and he's opening up a bunch of documents and files. And next thing you know, he clicks a file and all the pictures and videos of me and the professor naked together shows up on the screen in front of everyone. This is going to be part 5 of the time I lost my virginity to my college professor who was married. Like I said, the professor clicks on the wrong file on his computer. All the pictures and videos of me and him hooking up showed up on the screen in front of the whole entire class. I'm sitting there like, I don't know who that is. That ain't me. It might look like me, but it ain't me. The entire class gasped all at once. It was like a harmony. And some students who sat next to me started to look at me. Like I said, I don't know who that girl that looks exactly like me on the screen is. I don't know who she is. Don't associate me with her. I don't know her. The professor's face goes red. He was frantically trying to take it off the screen. Like, it's too late. I put my hoodie up and I didn't know if I should leave the classroom or just stay in the classroom because not everybody realized that it was me. Like, some people in college don't pay attention to who's in their class. But the people that sat next to me knew that it was me. I didn't know if I should have stayed in class or if I should have left the classroom because if I left the classroom it would have looked guilty, but if I stayed in there it was just awkward. I decided to stay to avoid looking guilty. Once class was over and I went home, the entire school knew about me and the professor. This is gonna be part 6 of the time I lost my virginity to my college professor who was married. So like I said, I sat through the rest of the class after those pictures and videos were shown. It just would have been way more awkward if I just walked out right away. Like, it's already awkward. Let's try to avoid the awkwardness as much as we can right now. By the time I got home, everybody knew about me and the professor. Everybody at school was talking about it. What's worse is that somebody took a picture of the screen. That was evidence, and someone sent that to his wife. A lot of people were asking me about what happened, but I didn't tell them anything because I didn't have any friends at that school and nobody deserved to know my business. I had not been in contact with the professor ever since. He had blocked my number and I tried to email him, but he wasn't answering my emails. He also stopped holding class the day after that happened. But one day he did email me back. He said from there on out to stop contacting him, and so I did. The school kind of swept everything under the rug. He did in fact get fired. The school said that if anybody reposted that picture of the screen, they would get expelled. I dropped out of college. It was definitely not worth it. So here's just a little reminder to never sleep with your college professor.
Story time about how my neighbor killed my dog. So a little background information. When I was about 3 years old, my parents got me a German Shepherd. And my neighbors who lived next to us absolutely loved our dog. And so did their kids. Like, their dad literally put a doggy door in the fence so that way our dog could go back and forth from our house to his house. Well, when I was about 8 years old, my neighbors decided to sell their house. So he told us that he had to take out the doggy door because the people that were buying his house hated animals. Well, the people who had just bought his house, they ended up moving in before he could take out the doggy door. So our new neighbors asked us if we could put like a piece of plywood in front of the door so that way our dog couldn't get through. And they said that they would do the same to their side of the fence. So my dad said, yeah, he put a piece of plywood in front of there. Well, my dog, Gabe, the one night that my brother let him out, he ended up getting the plywood off of the doggy door. Well, my brother literally had to crawl through the doggy door to get the dog before one of them saw him in the yard. Like for Part 2 about how my neighbors killed my dog. So like I said, my brother let the dog out, and my dog got the piece of plywood off of the door. And my brother had to crawl through the doggy door to get my dog out of our neighbor's yard, so that way our neighbors wouldn't wake up and know that he got through. But whenever my brother went to go get Gabe, he realized that my neighbors didn't even have a piece of plywood on their side of the fence or anything. So my brother told my dad, and my dad went over there the next day to talk to them. And he pretty much said, I'm not going to have a piece of fucking plywood on my side of the fence if you're not going to be doing anything on yours to prevent my dog from going into your yard. And they were like, oh, well, your old neighbors never took out the doggy door. And my dad was like, that's not our fucking fault. Well, then our new neighbors said, if your dog all of a sudden becomes sick or just does not come back, don't be surprised. My dad decided to replace the door himself. Well, once Gabe realized that the doggy door was gone, when we would let him outside, he would literally just sit there and bark at the fence. Well, 2 weeks later, Gabe ended up passing away, and we found out it's because our neighbors were giving him rat poison. Story time about why I beat up my best friend. So a little background information. Her and I had been best friends since we were in 7th grade. Her family was rich, mine was poor, and at first she was a really good friend. She was always there for me whenever I needed her, until our freshman year of high school, which is when her and I started hanging out with boys. Now, my mom was kind of strict. She wouldn't really let me hang out with boys, but her mom was more lenient about her hanging out with boys. Every weekend she would throw a party at her house, and she would throw them in her attic because 1, it was huge, and 2, her parents didn't give a fuck what she did up there. Anyways, she would always offer to do my hair and makeup before the party started, which always made me really excited because I never really put any work into my physical appearance. Well, little did